Hello and welcome to Get Collected. I'm your host, Soul Brother Mike, and it's Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017, and you're listening to Season 4, Episode 10. Get Collected is co-hosted by Chrissy Cochran.
Hey.
Today in Get Political, Chrissy will be telling you in depth about each of the remaining NDP leadership candidates. And here's something, I'm sharing a live recording of Jack She's on the Ball from our gig at Wolfhead Distillery this past Saturday. And What's the Deal, Chrissy will be telling you about an upcoming gig. Now let's get to the show.
Today on Get Political, we're giving you the rundown on the 4 candidates in the NDP leadership race. So we've been talking about this on the show the last couple of weeks, and in particular, we've been holding a torch for Nikki Ashton. So I just wanted to do a little research for ourselves and for you guys to help you get to know the players in this race. So we're going to run through each of the candidates using some helpful data from the Globe and Mail, Wikipedia, and the comments section across a couple different websites. So first up is Jagmeet Singh. He's 38 years old, and he was a criminal defense lawyer before entering politics in 2011 to run for the Ontario NDP. He has a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Laws degree. He's the first turban-wearing Sikh to sit in the Ontario legislature. He was born in Scarborough to first-generation Indian parents, and he grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland, and also in Windsor, Ontario, where he says he experienced a lot of racism as a kid, both from children and their parents. He speaks 5 languages, he does jiu-jitsu, and he has competed in the martial arts in the US and Canada. He's been recognized for his fashion sense, named by Toronto Life magazine as one of their 5 youngest rising stars, and he's gotten a lot of accolades in the style department from other outlets as well. He's known for wearing $5,000 Tom Ford suits, and he's raised the most campaign donations so far, with the average donation being pretty high. In other words, his donors have deep Tom Ford suit-wearing pockets too. He's advocating for higher corporate tax rates, new tax brackets for Canada's top earners, and a national workplace law review. And he's also in favor of a $15 an hour minimum wage for workers under federal jurisdiction, which unfortunately accounts for only 10% of Canadian workers. In the comments sections, I learned that he has apologized for his past views on the LGBT community, which obviously means he once held views that required apologizing for. A lot of people are pushing back at his celebrity style icon status, seeing a lot of parallel between him and Trudeau, being a young, pretty face who kind of comes across as pretty centrist. He was reluctant to oppose the Kinder Morgan pipeline in one of the leadership debates, but he later did come out against it. People are also worried that his pension reform ideas might negatively impact seniors. He wants to scrap the current universal old age security program and roll it together with other seniors' benefits. Next up is Charlie Angus. He's 54 years old, married with 3 children, and he's a 5-term member of parliament in his native Timmins, Ontario, where he's been a prominent advocate for First Nations. He's also the lead singer of a punk rock group called the Grievous Angels. And in his youth in Toronto in the 80s, he was in a band called L'Étranger, which was named, of course, for the existential novel of the same title by Albert Camus. And they were best known for their anti-apartheid song, One People, which was one of the first independent music videos to ever play on Much Music. Angus began his activism around that time, starting a homeless shelter for men in Toronto. He's published 7 books. He's a member of the Roman Catholic Church, and he was a longtime columnist for the progressive Catholic New Times. He was also previously the NDP critic for Indigenous and Northern Affairs. In 2005, his own priest confronted him and threatened to deny him communion if he voted with the government to legalize same-sex marriage, which he did, so he stood his ground and was provoked widespread public reaction for that stance. He plans to dismantle the Indigenous Affairs Department and create an independent ombudsperson to legally enforce policies to promote Indigenous child welfare, and David Suzuki recently endorsed him as his choice for the NDP leadership. Some comment section criticism of Angus is that he's been a centrist up until this point, and one comment hopes, quote, his recent conversion is not a ploy just to win the race so he can go back to supporting pipelines and various U.S. wars. I can't find any info to substantiate the claim that he's supported American wars, but he isn't taking a clear stance on pipelines, and he has characterized the debate about pipelines as squabbling, and instead proposes Canada adopt a carbon budget. He's also been taking a break from the race since his sister's passing recently, missing the most recent debate to be by her side. Next up is Nikki Ashton. She's the youngest at 34 years old and has been a Manitoba Member of Parliament since 2008. She entered the House as the party's youngest MP at age 26. She was an outspoken admirer of Bernie Sanders during the U.S. election, and she faced some backlash for campaigning on his behalf during the primaries. She says the NDP should embrace its leftist origins, and she suggests a philosophy of you privatize it, we nationalize it. She supports tuition-free post-secondary education, and she calls for a united stance against the Kinder Morgan pipeline. She's also been a vocal advocate for Indigenous communities and women's issues. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Global Political Economy and a Master of Arts in International Affairs, and she's currently completing her PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies. She was the chair of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women in the 40th Parliament of Canada, and she's served as the NDP Post-Secondary and Youth Critic, the Rural and Community Development Critic, and the Aboriginal Affairs Critic in Canada's official opposition. She speaks 4 languages and is currently studying another 5 languages. She's presently divorced and expecting a child in November. Ashton wants to end carding, and she wants to scrap Canada's no-fly list, which she says discriminates against Canadians based on secretive information. During the elbow gate snafu last spring, when Trudeau accidentally elbowed an MP in the House of Commons, Nikki commented that it was, quote, the furthest thing from a feminist act, and that it was reason for any woman in the Commons to feel unsafe and deeply troubled, which might have been a slight overreaction. The comment sections haven't been too kind to Ashton, doubting her ability to be an effective leader as a single mom and resorting to a lot of name-calling in the left-wing nutjob category, which, let's be honest, I think that means she's doing her job right. Last but not least is Guy Caron. He's 49 years old, and he's a Quebec Member of Parliament. He's worked as a labor economist and researched forestry issues for the former Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union of Canada. He ran 3 times unsuccessfully in Quebec before being elected in 2011. He has a bachelor's degree in communications and a master's degree in economics. He launched his campaign on the promise of a guaranteed basic income for individuals or families who are below the low-income cutoff line. He also proposes the creation of a tax crimes division within the Department of Justice Canada to prevent tax evasion. He also wants to work for, quote, trade deals that work for Canadians. He says implementing electoral reform would be his first act as Prime Minister if the New Democrats form government in 2019, and he feels Trudeau broke his word on similar promises. I think we all feel that way. Caron doesn't believe there's been enough discussion within the NDP on the pipeline question, and he worries that the issue is creating divisions within the party. He has opposed the Energy East pipeline, but he hasn't been keen to take a stance in recent debates. And to be honest, the comment sections on articles about him are pretty quiet. So there you have it. Those are your 4 candidates. Now, if you haven't registered as a new party member, unfortunately, you won't be able to vote in this leadership race. The election itself is taking place sometime between September 17 and October 31, with a precise date to be set eventually, but ultimately the leader will be named by Halloween. There's going to be debates on August 27 in French only, and on September 10 and 17 in English. So our next Get Political segment is on September 12, and we should have some updates for you then.
So now for the next part of our show called Here's Something. Today I'm sharing a live recording of Jack, She's on the Ball. It's a song by Ray Charles that we performed this past Saturday at the Wolfhead Distillery. This is a performance by myself and Kelly Hoppy, aka Mr. Chill. This song was first recorded in 1950 and released on the Swing Time label. I'm a big fan of this era of Ray Charles and cover many of these early tunes of his. So have a listen now to Jack, She's on the Ball live featuring Kelly Hoppy.
If you beg a date, she says you're too late. But later she gives you a call. Don't hesitate, you're in for a break. 'Cause Jack, she's on the ball. If she winks at you, don't miss that cue. For this is no time for a stall. Man, call a hack and get to your shack. 'Cause Jack, she's on the ball. No use in her denying. You don't have to do much trying. Just remember this: when she gives you a kiss, her heart and soul are pining. So remember, Gates, it's never too late. If ever she's starting to stall, just bait your trap, she'll fall just like that. 'Cause Jack, she's on the ball. No use in her denying. You don't have to do much trying. And just remember this: when she gives you a kiss, her heart and soul are pining. So remember, Gates, it's never too late. If ever she's starting to stall, just bait your trap, you fall just like that. 'Cause Jack, she's on the ball. Jack, she's on the ball. Jack, she's on the ball.
All right, that was Jack, She's on the Ball. Reach out to me on Twitter at SoulBrotherMike to let me know what you thought. Also, if you'd like to download and own that recording, subscribe to the Get Collected podcast on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll get access to all of the music that we feature in the Here's Something part of our show, and it's often rare and otherwise unreleased. So go subscribe now at patreon.com/getcollected.
So what's the deal? Here's the deal. The solar eclipse was yesterday. We made some pinhole projectors, which I thought were pretty cool, but Mike was pretty underwhelmed. It does look like we're going to have a better one in Canada in 7 years. Actually, I think Windsor is going to be in the path of totality. So our eclipse of the century is yet to come. Besides that, we're playing an open house tomorrow at a photography studio in Amherstburg. It's called Chalet Studios, and it's a gorgeous manor and gardens owned by a husband and wife duo, and they've been in business together for 30 years, so they're hosting a party to celebrate. They're going to be doing tours of their gardens and studio, and there's live music from Mike and I between 4 and 6, and then there's a sax player who's going to be making music from 6 to 9. So the whole day is free to attend, but they do want you to RSVP, and you can find the info on how to do that at chrissycochran.com/dates. This weekend, we don't have any public gigs, but I'm doing a wedding on Friday, and then we are heading north of Toronto for a family reunion/birthday party for Mike's mom. We're also going to be playing some music there. So this weekend, I'll officially reach the milestone of playing the most gigs in any year of my music career. That number was 44 shows back in 2010, and I'm already booked for another 15 gigs on top of this already. These numbers are pretty far from back in 2015 when I was pretty anxious and I was having a hard time playing shows, and I took on only 18 gigs that year. So it feels pretty good to have some hard numbers to show that I'm having a lot easier time getting on stage and staying on stage these days. So that's the news for today. Thanks for listening.
All right, that's our show for today. Thanks so much for listening. Tune back in on Thursday for an all-new Specific Awesomeness. Stay tuned and stay collected.